The grand chamber of the Galactic Confederation hummed with quiet conversations as Captain Sun Kim of Earth approached the speaking platform. The room was massive, with curved walls that reached up to a dome showing the stars beyond. Representatives from over 200 alien species sat in tiered seats, their varied forms creating a living rainbow of colors and shapes. Earth had joined the Confederation just 3 years ago. Humans had finally cracked the code of faster-than-light travel, but their technology was simple compared to species that had been crossing the stars for thousands of years. Kim stood tall despite her nervousness. Her dark blue uniform was crisp and neat, but plainly designed compared to the elaborate garments worn by other representatives. She cleared her throat, and the room gradually fell silent. "Thank you for recognizing Earth's delegation," she began, her voice steady. "I come with an urgent request. Our colonies in the Orion sector need defensive support. Our intelligence shows the Bright Empire is planning to attack our borders soon." A quiet laugh came from somewhere in the chamber, then another. Soon, a wave of amusement spread across the room. Kim's face remained calm, though her knuckles whitened as she gripped the podium. Admiral Rono of the Stellar Republic stood up. His species had 4 arms and purple-tinted skin that shimmered under the lights. The elaborate metals covering his chest clinked as he moved. "Captain Kim," he said, not trying to hide his smirk, "your species has barely figured out how to leave your own solar system. Your technology is—" He paused, searching for a word. "Quaint. Perhaps humans should focus on improving their own ships rather than asking for help from busy, advanced civilizations." Several delegates nodded in agreement. Some didn't even try to hide their grins. "We are not asking for charity," Kim responded evenly. "Earth pays its full membership dues to the Confederation. We simply request the protection that is promised to all members under Article 7 of the Charter." A delegate with 6 eyes and green scales stood up without waiting to be recognized. "Your primitive ships wouldn't last 10 seconds against a Bright Empire cruiser. They're practically made of paper compared to proper warships." This brought loud laughter from around the chamber. One delegate was laughing so hard that the translator couldn't keep up with the sounds coming from its breathing holes. Captain Kim stood silently, waiting for the laughter to die down. When it finally did, she spoke again, her voice calm but cold. "Thank you for your consideration. Earth will note the Confederation's response." She gathered her data tablets and stepped down from the platform. As she walked back to her seat, she noticed how many delegates turned to watch her, some whispering to each other behind their hands or tentacles. Their eyes held no respect, only amusement or pity. Her second officer, Lieutenant Jin Lee, stood as she approached the Earth delegation's small table. Unlike the grand booths of the founding species, Earth's space was just a simple table with 4 chairs, placed near the back of the chamber. Lee pulled out her chair. As Kim sat down, he leaned close to her ear. "They treat us like children," he whispered, anger clear in his voice. "They'll regret this someday." Kim's eyes stayed focused on the next speaker, who was discussing trade routes that had existed for centuries before humans discovered fire. She gave a small nod. "Sooner than they think," she replied softly. After the session ended, Kim and Lee walked through the grand hallways of the Confederation headquarters. The building was ancient, with stone pillars carved with the history of 1,000 worlds. None of those carvings showed Earth or humans. "Captain," Lee said as they walked, "the message from Antarctica came through while you were speaking. Dr. Park says Project Tesseract is ahead of schedule. Initial tests of the dimensional drive were successful." Kim's stern expression softened slightly. "Good. When we get back to the ship, send a priority message. Tell them to accelerate the timeline." "Do you think they would have helped if they knew what we're capable of?" Lee asked. Kim watched as a group of delegates passed by, pointedly ignoring the humans as if they were not worth noticing. "No," she said, "their minds are too set in their ways. They've been the most advanced species for so long that they can't imagine being surprised. That will be their weakness." They reached the docking bay where their shuttle waited. The small craft looked plain and simple next to the gleaming ships of other worlds. Several dock workers from an insectoid species chittered to each other, pointing at the human shuttle. "I almost feel bad for them," Lee said as they boarded. "Don't," Kim replied, settling into her seat. "The bright Empire won't show mercy when they attack, and neither will we when we reveal what humanity can truly do." As their shuttle departed, the vast Confederation headquarters shrank behind them. Thousands of ships moved around the station, a display of power and technology built over millennia. Soon, none of it would matter. The rules of the game were about to change completely. Kim looked out at the stars and allowed herself a small smile. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate humans. They wouldn't be laughing when the Phantom appeared from dimensions they couldn't even comprehend. 100 meters beneath the Antarctic ice, hidden from both satellites and curious Confederation observers, the Tesseract facility hummed with energy. Warm light glowed from the walls, fighting against the natural darkness and cold of humanity's most isolated continent. The facility was a maze of white corridors, research labs, and testing chambers, all built in secrecy over the past 2 years. In the main research hub, Dr. Min Park moved quickly between floating holographic displays. His dark hair was messy, and he hadn't shaved in days. The screens showed mathematical equations that seemed to fold in on themselves in impossible ways. Numbers and symbols floated in three-dimensional space, connected by lines of light that twisted through dimensions that ordinary humans couldn't see. "Dr. Park, the seventh-dimensional calculations are holding stable," announced Dr. Ji Choi from her workstation across the room. She pushed her glasses up and smiled broadly. "The quantum entanglement matrix is responding exactly as predicted." Unlike the rest of the team who wore the standard white lab coats, Dr. Choi preferred her old university hoodie. Despite being only 32, she had revolutionized quantum mathematics before being recruited for Project Tesseract. Park nodded, allowing himself a small smile. After 2 years of failures, setbacks, and moments when the entire project seemed impossible, they were finally seeing results. "Run the final simulation again," he ordered. "I want to be absolutely certain." Screens around the room changed to show a computer model of a small spacecraft moving through what looked like folded space. The ship didn't travel through normal space. Instead, it seemed to step sideways into another layer of reality. "Simulation complete," called out one of the younger scientists. 100% success rate across all test parameters. Park took a deep breath. "Prepare the final calibrations for the shadow step drive." The team moved with new energy, typing commands and adjusting settings. Park walked to the large window that overlooked the adjacent hangar bay. There, suspended in a cradle of advanced machinery, waited the experimental vessel they had named Phantom. The ship was smaller than most Confederation shuttlecraft. Its sleek, dark hull reflected little light, making it difficult to focus on directly. Unlike the flashy, complex designs favored by most Confederation species, the Phantom looked almost primitive. Its true complexity existed in dimensions that most species couldn't perceive. Dr. Choi joined Park at the window. "Beautiful, isn't she? The Confederation thinks we're centuries behind them, but they're not even looking in the right direction." "That's our advantage," Park replied. "They've been traveling through normal space for so long, they stopped looking for alternatives. When you believe you already know everything, you stop learning." The door to the control room slid open, and Captain Sun Kim entered. Her uniform was dusty from travel, and her expression was deadly serious. The room fell silent as she walked to Park. "The bright Empire has crossed the Orion border," Kim announced, her voice tight. 3 colony outposts have gone silent. No survivors reported yet. Park's face darkened. "How many people?" "Over 12,000 colonists," Kim replied. "Mostly families." A heavy silence fell over the room. One of the younger scientists covered her mouth, eyes wide with shock. "And the Confederation response?" asked Park. Kim's mouth twisted into a bitter smile. "They've sent thoughts and prayers. and suggested we evacuate our remaining colonies while we can. Several angry mutters spread through the room. Dr. Choi shook her head in disgust. Admiral Rono himself told me that this was an unfortunate but predictable consequence of humans expanding beyond their capabilities. Kim added, "They're using this as another opportunity to remind us of our place." Park turned back to look at the Phantom. The ship seemed to shimmer slightly as the dimensional stabilizers ran through their testing cycles. "Then it's time," said Park. "The Phantom is ready." "Are you certain?" Kim asked, lowering her voice. "We planned for another month of testing." Park nodded firmly. "The calculations are solid. The simulations are perfect. We've tested every component individually and together. It will work." He turned to address the room. "Begin final launch preparations. I want the Phantom ready to deploy in 6 hours." The control room erupted into activity. Scientists moved to their stations, technicians rushed to the hangar, and security personnel tightened their patrols. "Who will pilot it?" Kim asked. "Lieutenant Kang has completed the neural training," Park replied. "His mind adapted to seventh-dimensional perception better than any of our other candidates." Kim nodded. "He's a good officer, steady under pressure." They watched as technicians in special suits entered the hangar below, moving around the Phantom with careful precision. The ship's surface seemed to ripple occasionally, as if parts of it existed somewhere else. "You know what this means," Kim said quietly. "Once we reveal this technology, everything changes. The balance of power in the galaxy, Earth's position in the Confederation, everything." Park smiled thinly. "Good. It's time for change." In the hangar below, the final components of the Shadow Step drive were being installed. The revolutionary engine wouldn't move the ship through normal space. It would fold the ship into the seventh dimension, a place where the normal rules of physics bent and twisted. From there, the Phantom could emerge anywhere in normal space, bypassing all conventional defenses. "Captain," Park said, "when the Bright Empire sees what we've created, they'll retreat. When the Confederation sees it, they'll never laugh at humans again." Kim's eyes hardened as she watched the preparations below. "Let them laugh now. Their laughter ends tomorrow." The grand chamber of the Galactic Confederation was filled with noise and movement. Hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy shouted over each other. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing maps of human space with red markers indicating Bright Empire warships. Captain Sun Kim sat quietly with the small human delegation. Their table was in the back of the room, far from the important central positions. Kim watched as alien species pointed at the displays and argued loudly. "This is moving faster than we predicted," whispered Lieutenant Jin Lee, sitting beside her. "The Bright Empire has already taken 5 colony worlds. They're not even taking prisoners." Kim nodded slightly but kept her face calm. "Any word from Antarctica?" "The Phantom launched 6 hours ago," Lee replied very quietly. "Lieutenant Kang reports all systems functioning perfectly." At the center of the chamber, Admiral Rono was speaking. His purple skin looked pale under the harsh lights. "The Bright Empire fleet outnumbers our border patrols 3-1. If we send ships to defend human territories, we risk leaving other sectors vulnerable." A tall bird-like delegate rose from her seat. "We should establish a buffer zone," she suggested, her feathers fluffing with agitation. "Sacrifice the human territories to protect established worlds." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Kim noticed how many delegates were nodding. "Humans have barely 20 worlds," the bird-like delegate continued. "Better to lose those than risk older civilizations with billions of citizens." The central platform suddenly glowed, and a massive holographic figure appeared. General Raul of the Bright Empire towered over the chamber, his scaled face twisted in a cruel smile. His species had evolved from apex predators, with sharp teeth visible when he spoke. "Esteemed delegates," Raul said, his voice booming through the room, "your debate is meaningless. The human territories will be under our complete control within days." Admiral Rono stepped forward. This is an unprovoked attack on Confederation members, General. It cannot stand. Raoul laughed, the sound rumbling around the chamber. Your human pets were a mistake to include in this Confederation. Consider this a correction of that error. The Confederation Charter guarantees protection to all members, Rono replied, though his voice lacked conviction. Then send your ships, Raoul challenged. But know that any interference will be considered an act of war against the Bright Empire. The chamber fell silent. Kim watched as the delegates looked at each other nervously. No one spoke. After a long moment, Kim stood up. All eyes turned to her as she walked to the center of the chamber. Her simple blue uniform looked plain next to the elaborate clothes of the other delegates. The human delegation requests 24 hours, she stated clearly. 24 hours to demonstrate our response capabilities. Laughter echoed through the chamber. General Raoul's holographic form leaned down toward her, his teeth gleaming. What response? He sneered. Your planets fall without firing a shot. Your ships flee or are destroyed. What could you possibly do in 24 hours? Kim smiled thinly. Nevertheless, 24 hours. Let them have their time, called out a delegate from the back. It changes nothing. Admiral Rono nodded reluctantly. The request is granted. This session will reconvene in 24 hours. General Raoul's hologram flickered. I will return tomorrow to accept your surrender, he said directly to Kim. Prepare your remaining colonies for occupation. As the human delegation gathered their things to leave, Kim's communication device buzzed softly. She checked it under the table, away from curious eyes. The message was simple. Phantom in position. Phase 1 complete. Outside the chamber, Lee walked close to Kim. They're not going to help us, are they? They never were, Kim replied quietly. But that's fine. We don't need them anymore. As they walked through the grand hallway, Kim's device buzzed again, then again. Messages started coming in rapidly. Captain, said Lee, looking at his own device, reports are coming in from the Orient sector. Bright Empire command ships are experiencing failures. Kim kept walking, her face revealing nothing. What kind of failures? Their communication systems are going offline. Navigation systems failing. Life support flickering. Lee looked up, his eyes wide. Their signals are disappearing one by one. They reached a quiet corner where no other delegates were present. Kim stopped and checked her device. The screen showed a map of Bright Empire fleet positions. Every few seconds, another dot on the map turned from red to gray. It's working, Lee whispered, excitement creeping into his voice. The Phantom is actually doing it. Kim allowed herself a small smile. Lieutenant Kang is performing admirably. How is he doing it? Taking out so many ships so quickly. The Phantom doesn't exist in normal space, Kim explained quietly. It moves through the 7th dimension. From there, Kang can place the ship inside the Bright Empire vessels, deploy the disruptors, and move out before anyone knows what happened. Lee shook his head in wonder. They have no defense against it. Nothing. Kim's device showed a message from Lieutenant Kang. 57 command ships neutralized. No casualties on either side. Moving to Phase 2. No casualties. Lee asked, reading over her shoulder. That was my order, Kim replied. We're disabling their ships, not killing their crews. The disruptors only affect their technology, not life support. We're better than they are. As they continued walking toward their shuttle, they passed a group of Confederation security officers rushing toward the communication center. The aliens looked panicked. What's happening? One officer was saying. How can they just disappear? Should we tell them? Lee asked quietly. Kim shook her head. They'll find out tomorrow. Let them worry tonight. They reached the docking bay where their shuttle waited. As they boarded, Kim looked back at the Confederation headquarters. For centuries, these species had considered themselves the height of civilization and technology. They had laughed at humans, dismissed them, and now abandoned them. Tomorrow, everything would change. Set course for Earth, Kim told the pilot. I want to be there when the Phantom returns. As their shuttle lifted off, Lee asked, do you think they'll apologize tomorrow? Kim looked out at the stars. They won't have a choice. 24 hours after Captain Kim's request, alarms sounded throughout the Confederation capital world. In the massive control center beneath the government buildings, operators of a dozen different species rushed between stations. Warning lights flashed on every screen. Something's happening in orbit, shouted a four-armed technician. Energy readings unlike anything we've ever seen. Admiral Rono rushed into the control center, followed by several high-ranking officials. What's going on? Is it the Bright Empire? No, sir, replied the technician. We don't know what it is. On the main display, a strange distortion appeared in empty space above the planet. It looked as if reality itself was bending, folding inward like paper. The sensors showed impossible energy readings, numbers that made no sense to the Confederation scientists. Get me visual, ordered Rono. The screen switched to show a direct view from an orbital platform. Above the planet, space itself twisted unnaturally. Then, like a ship emerging from water, a small vessel appeared where nothing had been before. It was sleek and dark, smaller than even the smallest Confederation combat vessel. That's a human ship, whispered one of the officials. But how did it get past our detection grid? The ship hung in space, seemingly unaffected by the planet's gravity. It made no move to approach or retreat. It simply waited. Sir, called another technician, we're receiving a transmission from the vessel. They're requesting permission to send a delegation to the emergency council session. Rono stared at the screen, his four hands clenched into fists. Permission granted, he said finally, and alert all council members. Session begins in 1 hour. The Grand Council chamber was filled beyond capacity 1 hour later. Every delegate had arrived, along with military officials, scientists, and government leaders from dozens of worlds. The usual chatter was absent. Instead, a tense silence filled the room. Captain Kim entered with a small delegation of humans. Walking beside her was a man none of the aliens had seen before, Dr. Min Park, who moved with calm confidence despite the hundreds of eyes watching him. Most surprising was the young human in a pilot's uniform who followed them. Lieutenant Kang looked tired but proud as he took his seat with the human delegation. At the center of the chamber, Admiral Rono stood. This emergency session is called to address the developments of the past 24 hours. Captain Kim, you requested this time to demonstrate human response capabilities. The floor is yours. Kim walked to the central platform, Dr. Park beside her. Thank you, Admiral. Yesterday, the Bright Empire launched an unprovoked attack on human colonies. The Confederation chose not to intervene. Her words hung in the air, making many delegates shift uncomfortably. Today, I am pleased to report that the Bright Empire fleet has retreated from human space. All their command ships have been neutralized, and their forces are in disarray. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A delegate stood. How is this possible? Your fleet is tiny compared to theirs. Kim nodded to Dr. Park, who stepped forward. We didn't use our fleet. We used this. The central hologram activated, showing the small ship they had seen in orbit. This is the Phantom, Park explained, a vessel that operates using principles of seventh-dimensional physics. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Park waited for the noise to settle before continuing. The seventh dimension intersects with conventional space in ways your science hasn't explored, he stated. The Phantom doesn't need to travel through space as you understand it. It simply steps sideways. Park activated a series of displays showing complex equations and models that made little sense to most observers. Allow me to demonstrate, he said. The main display changed to show footage from the Bright Empire conflict. The delegates watched in stunned silence as the Phantom appeared inside the shields of a massive Bright Empire warship, seemingly materializing from nowhere. The small vessel deposited something on the larger ship's hull, then vanished before the warship's weapons could fire. Seconds later, the bright Empire ship's lights flickered and died. The pattern repeated with ship after ship, the Phantom appearing inside secured perimeters, deploying devices, and vanishing before any response was possible. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Rono, loud enough for everyone to hear. "No species has mastered dimensional technology beyond the fourth dimension. The energy requirements alone would be solved," Park finished for him, "by approaching the problem differently." Kim stepped forward again. The devices deployed were non-lethal energy disruptors. They disabled the bright Empire ships without harming their crews. "Unlike our attackers, we chose not to take lives unnecessarily." The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. A human vessel had single-handedly defeated one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy, using technology that should have been impossible. "Perhaps," Kim said into the silence, "this happened because you've all had space travel for too long. You stopped looking for alternatives. Humans had to think differently." An older delegate with crystalline skin slowly stood. "You're saying humans developed seventh-dimensional technology in just 3 years since joining the Confederation?" Park shook his head. "No. We began theoretical work decades ago, long before we met any of you. Our brains are wired differently than yours. We see patterns you don't. We imagine things you can't. This changes everything," Admiral Rono said quietly. "The balance of power, defensive strategies, the nature of space travel itself." "Yes," Kim agreed. "It does. What do you want?" asked another delegate. "With this technology, you could dominate the Confederation." Kim looked around the chamber, at the faces that had laughed at humans just days before. "We want what we always wanted. To be treated as equals. To contribute to galactic civilization. To be protected by the agreements we all signed." A message flashed on several screens around the room. Admiral Rono checked his device and looked up with surprise. "The Bright Empire is requesting immediate peace talks," he announced. "They're offering unconditional withdrawal from all contested territories." All eyes turned to the human delegation. Kim smiled slightly. "We accept their withdrawal. Further terms can be negotiated once all human colonies are secure." As the session continued, many delegates approached the humans, asking questions about the Phantom and seventh-dimensional physics. Dr. Park patiently explained what he could in terms they might understand. Lieutenant Kang found himself surrounded by admirals and fleet commanders, all wanting to know what it felt like to pilot a ship through dimensions they couldn't even comprehend. "It's like," he tried to explain, "seeing all possible paths at once, and simply choosing which one to take." Outside the council chamber, news of the human achievement was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers were suddenly reassessing everything they thought they knew. The age of Confederation dominance was over. A new era had begun. The bright Empire ships vanished from human space so quickly that many colony worlds didn't even realize what had happened. One moment, massive warships filled their skies. The next, the enemy was gone, leaving only confused colonists wondering if they had been saved or abandoned. Captain Sun Kim watched from the observation deck as the last bright Empire diplomatic shuttle departed from the Confederation headquarters. The shuttle was small and plain, nothing like the grand vessels they had arrived in 2 weeks earlier. "The final peace agreement is signed," said Lieutenant Jin Lee, joining her at the window. "They've given up all claims to human territory. They've even offered reparations for the colonies they attacked." Kim nodded. "Fear is a powerful motivator." "Fear and embarrassment," Lee added with a small smile. "General Raoul couldn't even look at you during the negotiations." The doors to the observation deck slid open, and Dr. Min Park entered. He looked tired but satisfied. "The Technology Transfer Committee is finished for the day. They asked so many questions I think my voice is giving out." "Are you sharing everything?" Kim asked. Park shook his head. "Just enough. The basic principles of seventh-dimensional physics, but not the complete shadow step drive designs. Not yet." "Good," Kim said. "Trust needs to be earned." 3 months had passed since the Phantom had revealed itself above the Confederation capital. In that time, everything had changed. The once mighty bright empire had retreated to its core systems, its reputation shattered. The Confederation, shaken to its foundations, was rebuilding itself with humans as equal partners. The next day, the Confederation Council convened for its regular session. The chamber looked different now. The human delegation no longer sat at a small table in the back. Instead, they occupied one of the central tables, with their own grand booth like the founding species. Captain Kim, newly appointed to the High Security Council, took her place at the leadership table. Around her sat the most powerful representatives in the galaxy, including Admiral Rono, who nodded respectfully as she sat down. After routine matters were settled, Kim was invited to address the council regarding the new joint research initiatives. She stood, looking out at the hundreds of delegates who now watched her with respect instead of amusement. 6 weeks ago, many of you thought humans were barely worth noticing, she began. Today, I want to explain why we were able to surprise you so completely. The chamber was silent, every delegate paying close attention. We didn't build better weapons, she explained to the assembled delegates. We simply looked at space differently. Human neural architecture, something you all considered primitive, allowed us to conceptualize dimensional planes your species long ago stopped considering. She activated a display showing human brain patterns alongside those of other species. Humans evolved as problem solvers on a dangerous world. We never stopped asking, what if? Even after we thought we knew the answers, we kept questioning. This isn't a strength unique to humans. It's a strength that belongs to anyone willing to question what they think they know. When the session ended, delegates crowded around Kim, asking questions and offering alliance proposals. Many were species that had once laughed at humans openly. As the crowd thinned, Admiral Rono approached her. The tall purple alien seemed humbler than he had been months before. Captain Kim, he said quietly, may I speak with you privately? They walked together to a small garden area off the main corridor. Plants from 100 worlds grew there in carefully maintained beds. We underestimated your people, Rono admitted, looking at a flower rather than at Kim. The Confederation has existed for 12,000 years, and we thought we had discovered everything worth knowing. Kim watched a small insect land on a nearby leaf. Perhaps that was the problem, she replied. Sometimes it takes a newcomer to see what's been overlooked. Rono nodded slowly. The Phantom technology. It changes everything we thought we knew about space travel, about defense, about the universe itself. Change can be frightening, Kim acknowledged. But it can also be wonderful. My species was among the founders of the Confederation, Rono said. We've guided the younger races for millennia. Now I wonder if we've been guiding them down the wrong paths all along. Kim smiled gently. Not wrong. Just one set of paths among many. 6 months later, the Antarctic landscape looked very different. Next to the hidden human facility, a massive new complex had been built. The Joint Dimensional Research Center gleamed in the polar sunlight, its architecture blending styles from a dozen worlds. Inside, scientists from across the galaxy worked side by side with humans. Species that had once been enemies now collaborated, exploring the strange new physics the humans had uncovered. Dr. Park led a team of researchers from 7 different species. In a large lecture hall, he explained concepts that would have been dismissed as impossible just a year earlier. The 7th dimension is just the beginning, he told his colleagues. Our calculations suggest at least 11 dimensions that intersect with our reality. In another part of the facility, Lieutenant Kang trained pilots from various species to perceive higher dimensions. Most struggled, but a few showed promise. Don't try to see it, he advised a frustrated alien pilot. Try to feel it. Let your mind expand beyond what your eyes tell you is real. Deep in Antarctic hangars beyond the research center, hidden from most visitors, a new fleet of ships was taking shape. Unlike the experimental Phantom, these vessels were larger, more refined. They incorporated both human dimensional technology and the best conventional systems from other worlds. Captain Kim surveyed the construction from a high platform. Beside her stood Admiral Rono and representatives from 12 other worlds. "They're beautiful," said a delegate from a species that had evolved in gas giants. "What will you use them for?" "Defense." Kim shook her head. "Exploration. These ships can travel not just through space, but through layers of reality we've never been able to reach before. Imagine what we might find there." "You could have kept this technology to yourselves," Rono observed. "Used it to dominate the galaxy." "What would be the point of that?" Kim asked. "We're stronger together. Each species sees the universe differently. Together, we might see it completely." As the delegates departed, Kim remained on the platform, watching the workers below. Human engineers worked alongside aliens, building vessels designed to explore dimensions no species had previously imagined. The stars above the Antarctic station seemed brighter somehow. Or perhaps, Kim thought, it was just that she knew now how much more was out there, waiting to be discovered. They had all been looking at the same stars for thousands of years, but now finally, they were beginning to see them.